All right, what is going on, everybody? You are watching Real Life with Duke White and Current FM. We are both here. Of course, we got Mark with us from Sanctus Real. I was going to say your last name, but then I was like, no, I'm not. Really, I was going to say it. It's like, nope.
That's the voice of experience right there. We've all had those terrible experiences trying to pronounce weird last names, haven't we?
I'm terrible at that. And the worst part about it is that I wear it on my face, right? So like you can tell, because I don't even know how to be cool about it, like to say your name the wrong way and just keep a straight face. I don't have that.
Right.
I'm just like. So and now we got Dustin with us. What's going on, man? It's good to see you.
Guys. Good to be here. Can you hear me? Everything good? All right.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. We didn't have any type of tech issues or anything like that beforehand. So I love how in show business everything just runs smooth.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially in the Christian music industry. Of course, there's never any problems, never any setbacks.
Never. It's all blessed. You know, we pray over everything before the show, and it's all blessed after that. And we've never had mic issues, sound issues, tech issues. Except for those few times.
Right, except for all the times it happened.
Yeah. Except for all the other times.
So here's the deal, guys. That you guys have been around for a while and you guys are still killing it, still putting out great music. 5 albums now, right? 5 albums. How do you take that in and then how do you keep pushing yourself, right? Like, hey man, what else do we have to prove? I mean, like what's the plan? Like how do you take all that in and do you compete with yourselves? Like that last album, how does that work?
That's a good question. Number one, I think Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you on 8 albums now? I think it's 8 for you.
8 albums.
Is that right, Mark?
You know, it gets kind of confusing anymore. You know, you've been doing it too long when you can't even keep track. You know, it's like
I'm not keeping the count on how awesome I am.
No. So, well, let's see. So in 2002, we released our debut album. So we had Say It Loud, Fight the Tide, The Face of Love, We Need Each Other, Pieces of a Real Heart, Run, and then we did The Dream.
That's 7.
So I guess that's 7 records. And then Sparrow released a Greatest Hits album. And then we lost our original lead singer.
Yeah.
So, and then Dustin came on board. And with Dustin, we've done a record called Change. And we've done a record called The Unstoppable God. And prior to those, even we released a little, 3-song EP or 4 songs or something.
We're like on 10.
Yeah, now we've gotten a couple EPs out.
You kept going and showed me how wrong I was.
You need to double.
It's like you just did a quick search, right? It's like, no, you didn't really look like it. No, but you guys have been like, no, seriously. I was like, thanks a lot, appreciate it, buddy.
No, I don't mean it like that.
We need to figure it out ourselves, man.
I'm reminding myself. That's what I'm doing.
No, but seriously, I can only imagine how that that gets like that sometimes. So I do gotta ask, man. Realistically, what do you guys prefer, studio or road or touring? Like studio or touring?
That's a good question. I think a lot of that has to do with the season.
He had nothing to do with the question. He was like, "I'm out."
I know. Mark just left us. Cool. I'll take this one. No worries, Mark. It's funny. I think it's a seasonal thing. I think to do this job, you have to like both at times. I like one of the things I love is the writing part of it when we decide, hey, we're going to go in, and we kind of always write, and I write a lot. But I love kind of the creative process and trying to walk through some of those street seasons of honestly having the question of what do we want to say. I think we've been doing it long enough where you asked, I didn't answer your question before. You asked the question about competing with ourselves and how do you keep the motivation to do it?
Yeah.
And I'll honestly tell you, and I have 4 kids. Chris has 4 kids. Mark has 3 kids. I think our motivation comes down to 2 things. One, it's our job. And so we have a lot of mouths to feed. And so just like every other person listening to this, you got to get up and go to work whether you feel like it or not. Like that's just how we look at it at times. Hey, this is what we've been called to do. This is how we support our families. And
Yeah.
then the second thing is, before I was in the band, I worked in a church for 15 years. This is every bit as much of a ministry as when I worked in churches.
Yeah.
And that never stops. I think for us, it's like we've been blessed with the ability to create music that seems to connect with people. And I feel like that's part of that is kind of this calling and talent that God has given us. So we use that. And I don't look at it as like a competitive piece. I look at it more of what can we say to people in this season? Like what this world is kind of going crazy at times. Like how can we lend a voice to this through our music that just kind of helps inspire people or brings hope to people or challenges people in some tough seasons. So I look at each record that way. Like what are we supposed to say with this one?
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, you got anything?
Did Mark hear any of that?
Yeah, I was gonna say I missed the question technically, but
No, he was actually answering the first question. Like, hey, do you compete with each album? You know what I mean? And
right.
you had started talking about how awesome you were and how many.
Then you got a finger left, Mark.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, my phone is going crazy, so I keep cutting in and out. Anyways, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that it is kind of an interesting thing. I think there's always that desire. We want what we do to affect culture in some way, so it has to be the best it can be. Like we want to always put our best foot forward and write songs and make recordings that are just as good as anything else out there. But I don't know if we look at it like we are in competition with ourselves. I don't think there's ever pressure like, well, this to this, we got to beat what we did the last time, or worse yet, we got to, so and so's doing this, we got to beat them. It's like that kind of thing. Maybe 20 years ago there was maybe a little bit of that, if I'm being honest, but that just, you get over that kind of stuff real quick after a while doing this. It's not as, there's plenty of things the Lord uses to humble you along the way, and the competitiveness, if there was ever any to begin with, is definitely beat out of you quick.
No, I can only imagine because of the first of all, the fast pace of how the industry, the music industry in its entirety changes. And then you got, when he said we got kids, I was like, and there's the answer right there.
There it is.
Yeah.
That changes everything right off the bat once you say I got kids. You know what I mean? And now, as far as some of the challenges that you guys face on the road, first of all, we don't. I tell people all the time the real difference, one of the biggest differences a lot of times between believers who are artists and those that maybe in the secular world is that, we, not everybody, of course, this is a general statement, but not everybody. It's like, we know that we can't really represent what we're singing and what we're doing on stage if we're not taking care of our family. So how do you guys balance that with the touring and the ministry side, and then of course the family side? I like it into the bad guys in all the movies, like they get all the cool toys, and the good guys can't because they got morals and they can't just do that. But how do you? Yeah, it's like, my favorite movies are when they're like, I'm not a cop tonight. But how do you guys balance that family and ministry, and I guess, and even artists in your life?
That's a good question. I think we only do this because our families are part of that with us. And I think our wives, I would say all three of our wives are, they are partners in this, and they have been from day one. When I joined the band 8 years ago, my wife, I always give her the credit because we went through some really tough times in those first few years. It was not accepted right away that we were still going on, and there was very little money. It's the opposite of what people thought. People thought I won the lottery, or American Idol or something. And the reality was I took a huge pay cut for 2.5 years. But my wife believed, and she would tell me every day I come home, she said, no, we're called to this. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And she believed in it, and I wouldn't be here unless she had that belief. And so even through our, and my family, it's balance is the key word, by the way. Like it's how do you maintain the balance? Well, you maintain it by keeping the balance. And we're always I think all three of us, it helps because we're all pretty well on the same page. We have to make enough money to pay our bills and do the things that we need to do. But at the same time, we are very thoughtful about how often we're on the road and how much we're on the road and when we're on the road, and also putting time aside for our families and for our kids. And I think any one of us have said, if our kid has a birthday or something, it's an important thing for them to be home. We just make sure they're home. So I think for us in everything, in all of life, it's really is trying to hit the word balance the most. And I think it's that way, it's glorified in a field like ours because we have to be on the road and we have to do all of this stuff, but it's that way for everybody. I mean, if you work 50 hours a week, you come home tired, right? You've got to still create balance in your life to celebrate your family and spend time with your kids. And I think for everybody, it's more important than people think all over, right? For us, it's just, it's people look at it and be like, well, you're on the road all the time. It's so hard. I would say it was just as hard in church when I was working 100 hours a week during Christmas season to try to find that balance, So I think it's just a part of normal life. And I think for us, we're all old enough and I have older kids as well as younger kids, where it's a constant conversation. Where is that balance? But our wives are with us. I mean, they believe in what we do. They love what we do. They're incredibly supportive. And we could not do this without that. It's not a constant struggle for me. It's not always like my wife wants this and I want this. No, we're usually on the same page. And I think it's that way with Mark.
Right, Mark? Yeah, definitely. To have done this as long as myself and like our guitar player is not with us right now, Chris, to have done this as long as what we have, I just feel like when God calls you to do something, it's like he gives you a special grace meant for whatever that calling is. Like when God puts something in front of you to do, he provides what's needed to be able to do it. And for us to have maintained this for 27 years now, actually longer than I've been married. I've only been married 20 years. It's just God's hand's been on it, and there's just been a special grace to be able to maintain, like Dustin's talking about, that balance, so it doesn't, hopefully doesn't tip too far in either direction, and God just makes it work.
So one of my things is that I had to deal with this, of course. And I'm so glad that I can get you guys in trouble instead of me, because it doesn't work out when I try to answer the question. But a lot of artists are like, "Hey, man, I made this song. It really comes from God. I like it. It blesses me. Like, can you play this on your radio station?" And then I listen to it, and it's like, no, absolutely not. And so then I'm going, oh my God, I don't have a filter. How do I not hurt someone? This and that, right? And so then I think about artists. I think about artists and and I'm like, hey guys, you got to have a stand. You got to be professional. This and that. And I'm always constantly asked, when is that line drawn? Like, what is worship? And then like what's the standard? We're supposed to be people of God, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. I've heard it all. Where do you guys, how do we help people deal with that?
That's a big question. I think one, we always have to look at the big picture. And I think when people, we're always biased. We write a song, we think it's from God and it's special to us, and then we throw it out in the big wide world, and now you got a lot of people judging that song, and it may not hit them. And I think what happens is we we think we've done something well, it's always that's about us, right? It's our song, it's our message. And the scary part with that is we can put so much of ourselves in that can become our identity. And then when someone says no, we lose part of ourself because we go, well, God, why didn't you? I thought this came from you. The
Right.
reality is music and songwriting, there's to me, there's a couple things with it that people miss. One, and I'm going to say this, and I don't want to get myself in trouble because I want to explain it. But one, when you do what we do, music is your product. It's the thing that you're putting out there for people to listen to, hear, and hopefully connect to. Not everybody's going to connect to it. Sanctus Rio used to be a pop punk kind of rock and roll band. They moved to, before me, don't blame me. They moved to Christian radio, CCM. And in that process, there were people who thought they lost something, and there were people who thought they gained something. And it was all based on the subjectivity of the listener. And the listener decides whether or not your thing, what you've created, is good, not us. And that's the thing. The problem with that is it's so very subjective, isn't it? Like, it's so very subjective what kind of music you like, if you like your music raw, if you like. Now, I'll also say this, there's a lot of American Idol syndrome where some mamas and brothers and sisters need to tell somebody they're not as good as they think they are. That's just fair, right?
Right.
So
you try to stay out of trouble, but you're like, forget it.
This is a talent-based business. Like, the people who are good at something that God has said has blessed them with the gift to do it. Even those people struggle to get heard and get. I mean, it's hard to do regardless. And so we put so much of our identity and our culture into getting attention and being out there and being successful. It breaks people. It really does. This pursuit of this career, and somehow or another, Mark will tell you, I don't even know how I got here, other than these guys heard me and said, "Hey, do you want to be in this band?" Because I was just working at a church. So, of all the people to say this, I'm probably better than most. But I'll tell you, in my 8 years of this, I have seen more people damaged and hurt by the pursuit of this career than blessed. And a lot of times it's because they tied their personal self-worth or their calling or that even what you said, God told me to write this or do something. Yeah. That's a dangerous place to be when you start, because actually what you're doing, and I will get myself in trouble with this, but if I tell you that God told me to write this, then now you have to decide whether you believe me or not. Right?
Yeah.
Either I'm connected to God or I'm not. And now you get to decide that question for me. So it's a dangerous question. It's a hard way to put it. And I think if people let go and just did it because of love and how they feel about God, instead of trying to get millions of people to hear it, they would probably be more healthier and have a better chance of getting 1 million people to hear it. So all of those things. Sorry, Mark. Took that.
That was great.
No, you're fine. That's awesome.
What do you
Preach it.
Mark knows me. He knows I'll get fired up about some of that.
That's good because, man, I mean, this, like you said, a lot of people do end up getting hurt. And, I love what you said, tie their identity. That's a pretty big deal. And I do know that in this particular industry, like as a gatekeeper myself, I really try to make sure that not just that that I know the investment that the secular industry puts into their products and things like that to make sure that their end user connects with them, right? That it resonates with them. And I'm like, I can't sit here and say that I am a child of God and I want to give God my best and then cut corners on the standard or certain things like that. It's like, no, I'm putting it this way. I'm not going to let those that don't believe in God outdo the things of God. I think that's a huge thing. But what do you got, Mark?
I mean, it's probably just kind of more of the same along the lines of what Dustin was saying. But I think of like uh, the scripture where, oh man, my mind's going blank. But where who is it that said the words? I'm not gonna give to God something that cost me nothing. You know what I'm talking about?
David. That was David. When,
That was David. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I feel like I always, everybody always says, "Oh, David wrote this and that." And so, anyways,
You got a 70% chance when it comes to David.
that's true. Well, I'm glad it was David, because David also wrote things like, play skillfully unto the Lord.
Yeah.
And, it's like there's something to when God.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Come on, Mark.
Listen, the way, yeah, like 20 seconds to talk, and it was like,
Mark's a drummer. It's cool.
oh man. But I do hear, but the reality that when we talk about, I know the real issue is like, I want to say passion versus standard, right? I'm all about people finding.
Right.
Hello.
There you go. He started
Sorry.
talking about, we were like, oh. No, but when you were saying David.
Yeah. So just the idea, I think, and we see it in the New Testament scriptures as well, when Jesus is talking about the talents, and the guys are given a talent, and one guy buries it, others invest it, all those things. It's like when God gives us something, we're called to invest in it, invest it itself, and just hone that, whatever it is. For us, we're talking about musical talents here on the show, but it's like we need to not be lazy about it and take it for granted, but we need to work on it and hone our craft and grow in the gifts that God's given us, and make them something worth offering, and obviously God looks at the heart more than anything. So let's obviously keep that in mind. Our motives and our heart speak louder than, whether or not we're the greatest drummer on the planet or whatever. But there's something to just being faithful with the craft that God's called you to, whatever it is. And I think, I think the church has definitely gotten a lot better at that over the years, but there's always still room to grow. But at the same time, again, not neglecting the heart part of it, making sure that our motives and why we want to do it well are pure.
Yeah. No, when I think about one of my closest friends, Jason Ferris, you guys know Jason.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jason is one of my very good friends. I've been friends with him for years. And with him and I remember when I first I knew before he was with Bretta Stone before, but I remember thinking like, man, this guy really takes his stuff seriously. You know what I mean? He really, and he started telling me about the importance of how to mic drums. I'm like, dude, isn't it already enough that you know how to play the drums? But now he wants to mic them right and this and that. And I watch this guy focus when he's on stage or doing production and things like that. And I'm going like, how much information can your brain entertain, right? And I'm like, wait a minute. He's doing this to make sure it comes across for the kingdom of God the right way. And when you think about the effort that in the secular world they put in just to entertain people, you don't know if you're walking out with 50 people who give their lives to the Lord or 500 people who give their lives to the Lord. And so I first of all, I always want to say this to you guys. I've always wanted to say this to you guys. Thank you so much for taking that stance to not put out crappy music. And that was from the bottom of the heart, man. Like, thank you. And when I say the music, I also mean the production as well, bro. Like taking that seriously. Now, are you guys hands-on, or are you guys more like whatever the producers want?
That's a good question too. We're pretty hands-on. I think we know what our sound is. We know what we want. I think too, sometimes we'll look at each individual song, and each song for us will have a purpose. And so we might go, hey, this song is a radio. We want this song to be a radio song. So we'll make it fit. We'll fit the box of radio with it. And so that's how we'll want it produced, or how we'll be hands-on with it. Other songs, we might have some songs we just think are artistic and a great message. And so we'll be more creative with the production on it. We have some new songs coming out next year we've been pretty darn creative in the process. So for us, it kind of is, what's the purpose of this song? What is the vibe of this song? What, for me, a lot of times is, how does the production boost the message of this song, or the melody or the lyric of this song? It's not always just about being cool, though we want to be cool. We want to write music that people will listen to, like you're saying. But also at the same time, how does that production add to our message that we as a band want to convey? I think if you're in Christian music and you don't understand the power of message, then you're a step behind. Because I think more than anything, there's no point in being in Christian music if you don't understand what you're trying to say. And I think a lot of people miss that part. They just kind of throw Christian cliches out there, which, honestly, let's be honest, any song can have those, and there's nothing wrong with those. But the depth of what you're trying to say, for a lot of bands, they miss that part because they're so concerned with other things. And for us, the production and, God, all I can say is this: God has given us the grace. I think a lot of times it's funny because Mark, Chris, and I have kind of differing sensibilities sometimes when it comes to music. But it's in those differing sensibilities that we kind of combine and have created this sound that we have now, and it's been a really unique thing. So yeah, it's I think for us, we want to be professional. We want the songs to sound as good as they can sound. We're not going to cut corners on sound quality or professionality and that kind of stuff. I think we've been blessed to have good enough ears to understand what that means. And but more than anything, we want all our production to kind of boost the value of the message. I think that's our number one goal.
Mark?
Yeah, what he said.
Did he freeze? Did he freeze? He froze.
Great Is your phone okay today, bro?
Can you hear me?
He froze. He froze. Totally froze. I thought he was really listening astute. We
can still hear you,
Mark.
Yeah.
You can still hear me, but you can't see me?
Well, no, you're just frozen.
Okay, let me see if
no, I'm still frozen.
Oh,
still frozen?
You're just frozen, bro.
There you go. There we go.
Is that working?
Nope, not for me. Still frozen. There you are. Oh,
hold on. There it is.
No, it's not silent frozen. It's just a different frozen.
Can you see me rub my nose?
Nope. I see you smiling at us.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what's going on, you guys.
Whatever you do, don't pick your nose. Right? It's like it's in a freeze frame.
It'll get stuck in there.
Yeah. Okay, no, but I do want to ask you guys this because I think it's important. Like, obviously we do things for a different reason. And so it's like, hey, like we're not keeping up with the times, but, you guys have a huge audience. Your audience is from kids to adults. I mean, you guys really do have a huge audience. Why not see that success and go, hey, man, we could be like the next, like, just positive band? Why stay in that Christian realm when there's that whole conversation of what is Christian, what is positive? How do you guys stay in that lane and not be kind of like, oh man, maybe our checks would be a little bit bigger if we did this? How do you avoid that? Or is that even something you guys, kind of deal with?
Mark, are you there still?
I'm here.
I I was gonna let you take some of this one to start because I think every time I speak, you're just like, yeah, what he said. But you're still just smiling at me from a frozen screen. So go ahead, Mark.
Can you hear me though?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll take a shot here. So, I think it kind of comes back to, once again, just this idea of what you feel like God's put on your heart to say. And, obviously we see differences between different artists. I know, like, years ago when the band Switchfoot first came out on the scene, from the very beginning, if you go back and listen to those guys' first records, before they blew up huge with the whole Beautiful Letdown record and Meant to Live and that big single that took over alternative radio at that time, before all that, even lyrically, the concepts of their records that they put out, it didn't really change. I think from the beginning, they always used to say that they believed that God had called them as a band to not be the ones, trying to throw out the answers all the time, but to be a band who was focused more on asking the right questions, and it's definitely a unique thing. And I know that they've had their struggles over the years of people being critical of that approach, but I think God's used it in big ways for them, and they've continued down that path. I think for us, we were always, we were a bunch of guys that pretty much grew up in the church, and I think we've just really had a heart for that youth culture. We were guys that listened to contemporary Christian music ourselves as teenagers and loved what those bands meant to us, and loved having that kind of, an alternative to the things that were out in the world that, maybe musically we enjoyed, but lyrically it wasn't the best thing, to be filling our minds and our souls with. But, I don't know. I just think from an early age, we always felt called to be a little more blatant, I guess, with our faith and our songwriting and whatnot. And that's just the path that God led us down. So as far as, for me personally, anyway, as far as the whole, like, could we be a bigger band or make more money if we weren't so, Jesus this, Jesus that, I think maybe at one time that seemed like it was real, but I don't know anymore. It's like, to this day, one of the biggest songs that has just ever been, not even just in Christian music, but one of the biggest songs that's ever been out there on radio is I Could Only Imagine. And I don't think you could get much more Christian than that song. I think if God wanted to take one of our songs and blow us up into the biggest band in the country, he could do it. If he wanted to do that, he would do it. It doesn't have to be the seeker friendly or whatever you want to call it. It's God will use whatever God wants to use. I mean, it's all going to come back to whether he really wants that to happen to us, and I think myself and the guys, we're good with whatever God has for us is what we will do.
One of the things I think about is, first of all, the importance of music and how important music is to American culture, specifically American culture, and how obviously I'm an MTV baby, grew up, MTV. Like, I saw the impact. Like, I knew what everybody was going to be wearing the next day based off what was on MTV. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then, of course, I saw the power of how music brought people together that normally maybe wouldn't even spoke or talking to each other. And that was just based off the sound, right? I remember, I'll never forget, one of the biggest things that I was shocked about was when I heard this group called NWA. And NWA, so that they asked NWA a question. They said, "When did you know you made it?" And they were like, "We knew we made it when we went to a concert in the middle of America, and it was nothing but white people there." They're like, it was all white people singing gangster rap songs, and it was like, we were like, "Yep, we made it." And I thought, wow, I like that transition. And then when I would talk to white people about hip hop resonate with you? They were able to say it transcended. It went past just this message here, right? It was like I took it as my walk with my parents and this and that. And I remember thinking, like, well, that's a lot of work to go from a gangster rap song to how it affects you, like, to interpret it in a poetic way. Like, that's a lot. I'm like, why is I'm like, why isn't Christian music translating that way? And I realized at the time, because most of us were thinking Christian music belongs in the church. What do you think the impact of Christian music, like you said, Switchfoot, is like? What do you think the real impact is when Christian music gets outside of Christian radio, outside of the church? Because I know that there's a lot of times where Christian young people love Christian music, but then when they're around their friends, they're scared to share it. How do we help that kid? How do we help that person say, you know what, we are going to listen to Sanctus Real. We are going to listen to Skillet in the car. I'm driving. I pay the gas. It's my car. How do we deal with that?
Well, man, that's a process. I think what has made this thing hard is, and gosh, I get myself in trouble, Mark. I'm so sorry with what I'm about. I think Christian music has become Christian radio music. And I don't mean that necessarily in a negative way, but Christian radio has a specific listener who they're trying to reach, and honestly, it's a reality. It's a business thing as well as it is a ministry thing, right? And so when you're trying to
preaching right there, man,
yeah, because our income is tied to it, because all this stuff, there's more than just, hey, let's create good music. You know, there's a whole lot of factors involved in all of this. But when we're writing songs and our biggest outlet to get music heard is Christian radio, then all of us artists have to fit the thing that Christian radio is. And that has gotten a bad rap. It's got a similar type of listener, and it's hard to break out of that. It's hard to do what we do effectively and make enough money to feed a lot of kids and families and without Christian radio. And so you see a lot of bands having to take their creativity and put it towards what Christian radio sounds like. And I don't mean that's not a knock on Christian radio. So
no.
It's just a reality. The difficulty is that sound is not the sound that 16-year-old kids are listening to. And I know this, I have a 16-year-old kid. So I think what happens for us a lot of times is, and we have this wonderful future thing. We actually don't have a label. We're independent. And so we have this freedom to be able to write some of the Christian radio sound, but also we can do some other sounds as well at times. And I think one of the things, because music transcends, it's not just Christian or non-Christian. Like, we're still using the same chords. We're using the same instruments. We can create the same hooks. For us, it comes down to what I was saying before. It's what is the message, right? And the message is we have to go beyond, again, we have to go beyond some of the simple cliche things that we tend to do all the time. We have to make our music, we have to make Christianity feel real and not a glistening like billboard in this saying, here's God, like everybody run to this thing, when we don't even define or tell people what that thing is. It's almost like it's just going to fix your life if you get to that billboard, but it ain't. That's not what Christianity is about. But it's so easy for songwriters to just do that because it's easy and it connects to people, and people go, I want that, I want that, I want that. But it's not deep. It's a very shallow way of looking at music and Jesus. And I think for a lot of Christian bands, it's going to be a risk to write songs that maybe are challenging a little more than we're doing. And I don't just mean, by the way, theological. There's so much in this.
I know what you're saying.
It's just, for us, it's got to be more than just fitting a box. You know, I can't write anything but Christian music. I can't. And here's the problem. Here's why. Because I am a Christian. So any topic I write about is going to come through the lens of Christianity, right? Like, this is how I view love, and this is how I view even sexual relationships. I view it from this viewpoint of how I think Jesus would view it. So I can't help but write a Christian worldview, even if it's secular music. Even if I was writing secular music, I couldn't help but write a Christian worldview on whatever it is I'm talking about. That might not even be labeled as Christian for a lot of people because I don't talk about, well, I'm not going to go into that, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not using the cliches. And so I think there's a world of, and there are, by the way, there are artists doing it. It's not like it doesn't exist. They just don't get the fanfare, and they don't get the radio, and they don't get the things that we all look at and say it's success.
They haven't made a clear stance on like what it is, but you see them definitely taking music on a deeper level, or their lyrics on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And I think that this is where, again, so let me tell you how I see you guys before I let Mark answer that question. I always looked at Christian artists as the Levites because they were musical priests,
right.
and they were also the warriors. There were also these people that were able to identify what the culture was doing, take that temperature, and then like report it to the prophet or the king or whatever. They were able to say, "Hey, yeah, these people, they're about to wild out. This is, and be able to take the temperature of what God is doing at the same time." And I think that there really is it's a shame that the industry has industrialized so much, because it does change that organic impact that telling my age, but in the early 60s, and there was an organic impact that music really took, and then before it got industrialized. But I do believe that the one thing that confused a lot of people was how the church did not initially respond well to Christian rock and Christian rap. I thought it was a civil war happening. I was like, what is going on? But Mark, did that impact you guys at all when you first came out? I think you might have been coming out at the back end of it. But when that whole thing was going on, how did you guys survive that Christian civil war?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like it was a little bit of a thing still back in our beginning stages. Not for long, thankfully, but I can remember going to a little Baptist church in Milan, Michigan, called Milan Baptist Church. We're still friends to this day with the couple that used to pastor that church, but we got brought in to be a part of a youth event, and somebody went through the church like the night before we showed up, and they had all these little posters advertising the band hung up around the church, and somebody had went through and written on the posters something like "You've let Satan into the building" or something like that.
Oh no!
Yeah. So we've dealt with a touch of that. Now, granted, that was like 20 years ago, but
Right.
it's interesting to see how far the culture has come, both inside the church culture and outside of it, in our ability as believers to loosen the grip on maybe what I would call maybe some of our religiosity and just kind of open our minds a little bit to the fact that as Dustin was saying earlier, it's like Christians can write about more than just Christian things. I think it was Phil Keaggy once said, we don't need more Christians writing about Christian things. We need more Christians writing about things. And, just like letting it be, because I think that we as believers, we're meant to be in every arena out there and affecting culture. And it doesn't have to be under the guise of, this is just another Christian version of, this isn't just another like some kind of ministry thing.
I can't stand it.
Yeah, like I mean, the Bible calls God's people, says that we're supposed to be the head, not the tail, right? Like we're supposed to be the leaders in all this stuff, and not just constantly mimicking what the world has done.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I think that we have come a long way, but I think we need to stay on track and keep on uh, being not just relevant in the culture, but I feel like we're at a place now, in a phase now, as believers in Christ, like we need to be the ones creating the culture. I feel like maybe we've gotten to a place where we're not just mimicking what the world has done, and we're not, we've gotten just as good at it as they are. It's like I think we need to set our eyes even further beyond that, and remember the fact that we're following the God who created everything we see, and we need to follow in the footsteps of our Father and His creativity, and be the ones setting the trends now, and being the ones who are coming up with the new technologies and whatever, all that stuff.
So I think that one of the things that happened as we crossed over into modern culture was that, of course, there's technology. There's Oprah. there's, there's Donahue and all the talk shows. Kids are getting more educated. The civil rights movement's over. Blacks and whites are getting along. It's like, the prosperity preaching's out. MTV's out. The church had never seen such social movements as this. And then what I think, one of the things that I think that happened was, as modern culture began to unite, and of course you got different types of belief systems being challenged, the church had to now answer a bunch of questions that they weren't used to, even not even knowing that people even had. Make sure you get that. Yeah, the church now had to deal with a society that it didn't recognize anymore, right? What do you do when we had our perfect little black church, perfect little white church, and all of a sudden it's like this? That movie with the Jesus Revolution. Now the hippies are showing up. These people that you knew had their guaranteed spot in hell are now a part of church culture. They're now part of church culture. You're seeing blacks and whites getting along on the same side of the street. It's total mayhem. And then the one thing, if you think about it, as you're getting older, then you want to pin that word holy and sacred on it. It's like, but surely we know what Christian music is. And then here comes that distortion. Here comes that Christian rap. Here comes that drummer and the it's like, no. So I have to hold on to that idea of what holiness is. And what do you when you think about, well, I would like to know for you guys, when it comes down to being as brave as you guys kind of have to be to challenge all the different perspectives and opinions of what God is doing specifically with you guys, or even in the industry, how do you not allow yourselves to get overwhelmed by, I guess, those opinions and all that stuff? Do you just turn to just a negative? Do you act like you didn't hear it, or inside are you going, hey, did we go too far? Did we do something wrong? Like, how do you make sure you're not being affected by everybody else's ideas of what God is doing with you?
Oh, that's a good question. Man, I think, me personally, I think my view of Jesus is a simple one. I think it's the way of Jesus. It's the simplicity of the fruits of the Spirit, of the love gospel. It's loving people, and not just loving people the way, I mean, the reality is everything a human does is imperfect because we don't know the whole story. So we talk about virtues, you talking about the social stuff, and there's so much fake compassion, there's so much fake empathy, there's so much of this kind of stuff. And part of it is because we can't really have compassion and empathy on people we don't really know. And I don't know your story, you don't know my story, so it's this beauty of Jesus was always about the individual story. Like he would get to know people. So his world, I mean, his world was huge, but he showed us how we can impact individual people. The stuff you're talking about is cultural noise. It's not personal impact. And
Yeah.
so there's got to be something in people that says, I want to make personal impact. And in order to do that, you kind of have to shut out the cultural noise, because nobody's going to agree with everything we do. Nobody. And so there are so many varying sides. And now, more than that, there's so many ways for these people to get at you, whether it's social media or the great X now, they can get at you in every way. And so it's more about the volume of the voices than anything that's changed. Is everyone's voice has been amplified. And I mean, we talked about it earlier. Everyone's looking for a stage. When you're asking about people who are trying to make careers in this, it's all about getting listeners and stages and how big is my platform, right? But there's not a lot of personal impact. You can't show a lot of fruit by talking and singing all the time. That has to be included in your normal life, like the people around you. Are you impacting people the way that Jesus impacted people? Those are the people you actually know, right? Those are the people that I know their story, and I know, and so I can truly be compassionate with this person, and I can truly show empathy or kindness or introduce them to Jesus the right way, right? It's just we're talking about some big topics that require a lot of nuance, right? There's a lot of things involved in this. So, but the reality for me is I I cannot allow cultural noise to impact my personal calling, right? Like, of people around me. Even our songs aren't meant to our songs aren't we're not trying to challenge. If you listen to our songs, we're not trying to challenge culture. We're trying to make personal impact on people. And we're trying to meet people, because I know that everybody, what we go through, I don't know why they go through it, but I know that we all deal with a lot of the same things. And a song is the place where you can listen to it and this person can listen to it. And your stories might be different, but you'll find common ground. And it's the beauty of music a lot of times. It's that we're trying to create a space for common ground and common, like, I don't care if you're black or white. We all struggle with insecurity. We all struggle with fear. We all struggle because we're humans, right? We literally are dealing with our own importance all the time. That's what I think the number one problem with humanity is.
We all struggle with dealing with our own importance.
Yeah, some people think they're too important. Others think they're not important at all. So I think that's where the message of Jesus is the kingdom of heaven, that he gives us value and worth and not culture. And so what we're trying to write is, whether, Paul said in the kingdom of heaven, there's no male, female, Jew, Greek, all this stuff. And I would add black, white, all this stuff into it, that God has given us all an equal value and an equal worth. And the church is missing that. We're still finding our value in how many followers we have, what we're saying. We think we're smart and we can fix everybody's problems, right? I mean, that's literally what we do. We get on our soapboxes and think we're going to fix everybody by bringing awareness to something. And I think we need to just start bringing awareness to the kingdom of heaven, which is the greatest equalizer. This is about the most controversial thing I think I've said in 8 years. Sorry, Mark. Thanks, Pastor Duke.
I think it's awesome.
I think our world is so broken because we all fight for our ideas. And I think as Christians, our ideas are secondary to the calling of Christ, honestly, which is the kingdom, bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth.
So good, man. So good. Mark, what do you got?
Oh man, what he said.
Here we go again. Now he's gonna disappear somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like if I start talking, I'm just gonna, like, my phone's gonna crop out. But
I think we're all thinking that. We're all thinking there's no like that can't be what it is.
Say it quick.
I mean, yeah, in all honesty, I just feel like it's very much like what you're saying, Dustin. Just it all comes back to, for me, I think of it in terms of, what has God told me to do? Who has God called me to be? what is he wanting me to say? And, I think first off, you only get to that place by legitimately seeking God. I think a lot of times, as Dustin was saying, just the voices are so loud. A lot of times we're affected by those outside voices because we're just simply listening to them too much. And, I think we all need to find that balance. And like, for me, being honestly kind of an introverted person who just, tons and tons of interaction and tons of noise, which just wears me out. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the guy who gets much more recharged by sitting in a room alone for a while. So for me, like, it just, I'm not a big social media guy. Like, the little bit of it I'm on, it's usually because I have to be for the band in some way or another. Most of the time, if I even get on my personal social media pages, I walk away feeling really stressed out from it. And it's just like, how much of that will I allow into my heart and soul versus just being alone in a room with the Lord and trying to listen for the voice of the Holy Spirit and hear what He has to say to me. I think that's where it all comes back to for me, is how much are we really listening to God Himself and the things that He specifically wants to speak to our hearts, and then going out and living out what He's telling us to do versus what everybody else seems to think that we should be doing or thinking or saying or whatever. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, because I think that once we take our eyes off Him, we really genuinely don't know what we're going to get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we're really doing is just taking a shot in the dark and hoping God blesses it when we do that. Do you guys have a show? First of all, if you guys got to go, we're going to have a 4-hour show. So I can talk.
I do need to go in a minute. I can hear my 3-year-old crying, and she's being watched by my 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And my wife is not here, and I think it might be escalating out there.
Right? No, don't get in trouble. It's just like, does he know that there's a fire behind him?
No, calling. So
No, don't get in trouble, dude.
Well, thank you. Hey, thanks for having me on. Seriously,
you guys are great, man. You're great, man. Can't wait to see you guys here.
All right, same here.
Take it easy, man.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
So Dustin had to go, but if you got to go, bro, let me know.
Okay, yeah, I got a couple more minutes, I think, but
okay. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, is just the reality of where we are today, in not just in music, but of course, no, a lot of believers right now are saying, "Hey, how do we find our place in that influential place?" I'm not a pastor. I'm not a worship leader. I am an artist. I am an actor. I am an actress. How do we find our place in that and not give in to the compromise that sometimes that culture of being a mainstream actor or actress or artist or whatever can kind of come with? How do I hold my standard and not give into that compromise? Do you have anything to say towards that? Is it even possible to say, hey, I'm not doing these kind of movies. I don't want to talk like this. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it absolutely is. I mean, obviously, it's all going to have a give and take to it. I knew a guy back in the day who kind of had this little movement, and part of it was he created this like clothing line and posters and stuff, and it was just all this kind of unique artwork. But the theme, the message that he had, like on all the posters, the shirts or whatever, was it just simply said, "We will never be popular." And the whole idea was, as believers,
that's good.
We have to recognize it's at some point the simple fact that Jesus made it pretty clear. He said, if the world hated me, they're going to hate you too. And there's a point at which us standing up for what we believe in will cost us, and we got to be willing to cross that line or not cross that line, and but just like when Jesus says, if you acknowledge me, I'll before others, I'll acknowledge you before my Father in heaven. You deny me, I'll deny you. It's like, that's a hard thing to hear Jesus of all people say, but that's what he said. And, and knowing the Lord, like, I know that his heart in that for us is nothing but love. It's I've created you to be something extraordinary, and the way to be that person I've created you to be is not by shuddering down and giving into the fear of what the world around you thinks of you. Think about what your heavenly Father thinks of you and who he's created you to be, and the fact that you're his child. And if you're the king's kid, nobody's messing with the king's kid, but I think beyond that, it's like it comes back again to just, as you're seeking the Lord and you're laying these things at his feet, he's going to speak to your heart, and he's going to show you what he's made you for. He's going to show you what you're meant to do, and there'll be some specific things about it, and it very well may be to be the next Oscar-winning actor in some role right beside a Tom Hanks or somebody like that. It's like, it could very well be that.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: how much has fear ever tried to stop you?
Oh yeah.
The reason why I ask is because obviously, like dude, we said at the beginning, man, you got 10 albums out. So is fear ever something that's no longer an issue, or is this just like a constant ongoing battle? Is it like with each album it shows up in a different way, or is your confidence going, like, how does that, especially when it comes to selling tickets, stage, how many arenas you sell out, the popularity, like how does fear try to like manipulate? Because it's all, to me, it's always trying to find a way in.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think from the beginning, for me personally, like, as a kid, I used to struggle with anxiety to like a crazy degree. And, as a shy, quiet kid full of anxiety, the last thing I would have ever expected is that God would call me to be on a stage in front of people. But that's what he did. But again, there's grace. When God calls you to do something, he empowers you to do it and gives you what you need. And I can honestly say that when we started this band, I was a kid. I was 18 years old when I met the other guys and we started playing music together. But it was really through that process, that kind of walking through that fire of being in a situation where, okay, if you want to play drums for people, you have to get up in front of them,
Right thing.
Yeah, it's just you just kind of sink or swim kind of thing. But God used that to build that confidence and to give me the grace to overcome my fears. But it does, it changes its face over the years. Then the fear becomes, well, how come we're not getting a record deal when I thought we would, and maybe we're not good enough. And, it's like all these things, start speaking insecurities into our minds, and, and then you get the record deal, and then it's, well, how come the record sales aren't quite what everybody was hoping they'd be? Or how come that radio single didn't do quite as good as what we thought it would? It
Right.
always changes its face, but it's the same baloney. It's the same stuff.
What's funny to me is that I think that fear is one of those things that the enemy uses to see what we really believe, you know what I mean, about our Yeah, I think it's one of those things like because I notice with people such as yourself, with Sanctus Real, whether it's David Crowder or whether no matter who it is, when I ask them about the fear thing, they're like, "Oh yeah, that guy. He's always trying to hang out. He's always trying to start something." I've never heard one artist. I don't care how successful they are, how well known they are. They're like that guy is always trying to show up. And you brought up the insecurity and all of that, and I'm like, what is that? Where no matter where what is that where you can do a million things right, but it's always easier to hear that negative? What do you think that is?
Gosh, that is a good question. Well, what do I think it is? I mean, honestly, I'm one of those guys that's definitely bought into at least some degree of. I think spiritual warfare is a real thing. Uh, I think that there is a devil out there. Now, I don't think there's one hiding under every rock, like some people would maybe push it to that extreme.
Thinking with that all day, yeah.
Yeah. But I just think that there are things that like to speak lies into our heads, and if we allow our heads to take hold of those things rather than taking every thought captive and making it obedient to Christ, as soon as you let that lie get a little hold in there, it can take root and really wreak havoc on your soul. And you know, I don't know what it is though about that particular. You can do so many things right and get one thing wrong, and it just will
Yeah,
eat
dude.
at you.
Now, does that happen? Has that ever happened to you? I mean, are you your worst critic?
Oh yeah. We I'll give you a perfect example. So like last weekend, right before a road trip where we had 3 shows in a row, Chris and I had gotten together and we went through a bunch of our production stuff, just a bunch of mic cables, mics, the way that our our rack units were set up for our monitors and all that, just a bunch of technical garbage. And and we just kind of went through and redid everything, yeah, and cleaned it all up and got it ready for these shows. And uh you know I relabeled a bunch of these mic connections on a box, amongst a billion other things that Chris and I did. And when we got to the first show, it turned out I had labeled this stage box incorrectly. Everything was off by like one was too far over, so you had to relabel the whole thing. Simple mistake, but we're sitting there trying to get set up and get sound check, and these production guys are there with the production company on stage, and they're having to take an extra 10 minutes to relabel this box that I screwed up. Like that drove me nuts.
You
The
were
rest of
whole
oh
time.
man, I was so mad at myself. I did so many other things that day that were perfect and fine, and we were ready to go, except for that one dumb box. But that's the thing I thought about the rest of the day.
Yeah. And I wonder. Sometimes I wonder if it's just if it's a constant reminder that of one how perfect he is. You know what I mean, and how like we're always gonna be we're always going to make mistakes and everything like that. But I think it helps us keep perspective. But it also I think it shows us our nature that how fast we are to kind of beat up on ourselves. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to beat up on myself, then yeah, I definitely need a God that's got a little dose of forgiveness.
Right.
Like man, So I think that's one of the issues. When you guys are making music, especially making music about kind of like the I won't say it's not just always from just the spiritual side, but you guys also deal with a lot of emotional and scenarios. Like you guys are great at that stuff. What do you think? What's that process like? Do you guys like create a scenario and then write to it? Like this is the soundtrack for this scenario, but how do you come up with that vibe?
Yeah, I think it always tends to come out of some sort of personal experience, kind of just whatever we're going through at the time. A lot of the songs are written as a result of a conversation, getting in the room together and just talking about, so what's up, guys? How's it going? You know, like, where's everybody at? And yeah, those conversations, just something always comes out of those. And, you know, we're all human, you know, so everybody's got something going on in life, you know, and so yeah, a lot of it is just really the song is kind of our way of dealing with or trying to make sense of whatever, you know, whatever somebody's in the middle of at that moment. Yeah, the song, you know, we recently had our last radio single was a song called Dare to Hope. And that was actually more based on our producer who produced that song with us, the situation he was in. A guy named David Spencer, and David lives in Nashville amongst all the other Christian music people. Yeah. But his family, you know, months ago now, there was that shooting at that little Christian school there in Nashville. Well, David's wife is a volunteer there, and his two young kids go to school there. Thankfully, they actually were all homesick that day. You know, maybe the first time you ever are thankful for a kid to having a cold, but
yeah,
they just happened to not be at school that day. So, but you know, some of their kids, their friends were killed, and you know, so that song ended up being written as a result of, after that had happened, kind of just David and his family dealing with the trauma of that and going to 5 funerals in less than a week, and you know, just dealing with the aftermath of that and trying to make sense of that and trying to find God.
I was going to ask you, you know, it's, you know, so it's a weird situation because I know that when you are depressed, right? When you're depressed or you're going through something or grief, you know, the last thing you want to do is listen to some happy-go-lucky music. It makes more sense to listen to something dark and morbid and grieving. And when I heard the term "dare to hope," I felt like that was a lot of resolve, because even when I heard the title of it, I remember thinking like, man, this is not faith we're talking about. This is the bravery to keep having it. You know what I mean? It was like the bravery to say, okay, I'm just like, because we technically are asking people, no matter how much you know, we go through, we're asking you to take one more punch, take one more kick, you know what I mean, and keep hoping, keep pushing, when it is so much easier to just shut down. And that's why I'm always fascinated with Christian artists, because it's like, you guys clearly can see the world we live in, and you're still, you know, selling hope. You're still putting out this idea that it's going to be all right. You're still telling people to be encouraged. You're still relating to people in their hurt and in their wounds. And, you know, truthfully, I think the culture, like even the culture doesn't even know how to give you gratitude for it, but it probably would implode if it wasn't for groups like yours. How do you take it all in, man, when stuff like the school shooting happens, when you see the war we're in right now and all the stuff that's going on? How do you conjure up that courage to say, well, it looks like, you know, the bat signal goes out, the Sanctus real signal goes out. We're going to put out another album. We're going to keep telling people, you know, is it to help you get through it as well? And do you even feel that responsibility when you can kind of sense discouragement plaguing the country? Do you see it on the road? Like, how do you challenge that?
Yeah, that's Man, that's huge. I think that as you're saying, we're just as much, and we're all in the same boat, right? Like we're all human beings. Everything that's going on, we're just as much affected by it as anybody else. And you know, I'd be lying if I said that we never wrestle with these things. It's not like we're always spiritual supermen. I don't know if we're ever spiritual supermen, let alone always. But I don't know. I think it's just something that, again, just kind of as our calling, I guess.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's we're meant to wrestle with these things and try to be a voice of hope in the midst of all this chaos. But also, you touched on, you asked if it helps us, and I would definitely say that it does. I think there's almost a sense of accountability in what we do.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for this band in a lot of ways because it forces me to stay engaged and to be a part of the church and to not run away and hide. Because if I'm honest, there's sometimes I'd rather do that. But
as long as I'm reading my Bible, it's like, man, I'm reading my Bible. I'm staying to myself.
Right.
I'm still saved, but yeah, to constantly answer that call out there, what do you ever, and I try to tell Christian artists this and faith-based artists this, is like, be careful because you don't have the same timestamp, like seriously, I mean, you do look kind of weird when you're 30 and above still talking about drugs and alcohol and the party life, you know what I mean? But with faith-based music, we can encourage people until the day we die. You know what I mean? We can make,
right.
I mean, so it's like, and I guess, I just pretty much told you guys are not permitted to retire ever. You know what I mean? Because it's like, hey, listen, guys, I don't think things are getting better, but we need you. You're on the field all the time, offense, defense, the kickoff team, but you're doing it all. But so, and I'm only half joking because, like you said, you've been doing it since you're 18. I think the one thing you guys have always done well is capture the lead the way and capture the minds of each generation. As those trends change, you guys have always been able to, to compete, if not even lead, because you guys will do your own challenges, your own, I've seen you on stage when you guys are just really rocking out and having a good time. And of course, as we get older, you guys still produce sounds that all generations have to respect and respond. I mean, you're one of the most talented musicians that I've ever seen. And you guys really do. I can tell that you guys aren't just going through the motions, but I do know for a fact that it has to be hard. Like, I would love to say you guys live on your bus or live in the studio and live at home, but you do see the news. You do see what's going on, and COVID obviously affected everybody else. Everybody as well. And I just wanted to say that, I really do appreciate that you guys haven't let any of that stop you. Because like me personally, if I were you guys, I would have went into like gangster rap or heavy metal, like, just based off the stuff that was going into the news, right? I'm like, we're saying this real turns into like the heavy metal DMX or something. I don't know. But I would have been like, because the idea of keeping the faith as dark as 2020 to 2023 has been, and you guys are still at it. I mean, you guys, I hope you don't downplay how important to the culture you are. You know what I mean? And like you guys really are a gift from God, man. And I really do mean that. Now, and with that being said, I would like to know, how did you get through 2020 or do you just block it out and pretend like it didn't happen? It's like 2019, 2021.
Well, first off, thank you for your words, man. That's super. I don't feel worthy of that. Thank you. It's super sweet of you.
Yeah, I really meant it, man. I really meant it.
Well, thank you. But yeah, 2020. Goodness, it's like the glitch in the Matrix or something. Like, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that did happen, didn't it?
Yeah. He's
Man, that was definitely a crazy time for bands. I mean, obviously for everybody, but for us, it totally changed everything about our lifestyle. We're so used to going out and traveling constantly, and that was just completely taken away. So yeah, all the shows were canceled, all the traveling stopped, and we were all stuck in our homes for a long, long time, like everybody else. But for us, I guess maybe the difference is that
you can't say that. I mean, most people are just like, I can't. Like most people, are interacting. I mean, that when you have that traveling bug, that's a bug to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, it's when that occurred, it dawned on me at one point, like I've not just been in one place for this long in over 20 years. That was weird.
Yeah.
But there was a part of me that I think also realized I didn't know how tired I was. I didn't realize how much I just needed some rest. And so, in a way, there was a very healthy aspect to it, I think, for all of us. And, I say all of us, I mean, like all of the artists out there, all the people that are just forced to go, go, go all the time. There's something to the art of resting that I think we all were reminded of in 2020 that is probably very healthy for us. But man, if nothing else, I will say for a lot of bands and artists, ours included, a lot of songs got written during that time, which is pretty cool to see now. We've got a lot to draw from now. And obviously there was plenty to be thinking about and writing about during that time. The world was on fire.
Yeah. And I gotta tell you, man, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the one thing that I guess because I try to lead the way and influence as many people into diversity as possible, and try to get young people to appreciate different styles of music and different genres of music, and so that we as the church never fall into the trap of like racial issues and all that we always rise above, right? And I gotta tell you, man, one of the things that I love so much about you guys is when I talk to Black believers and they know who you are. It's like that really that always resonates with me because again, not only do you guys minister to people of all ages, but you guys have such a diverse audience. Did that ever shock you that you're like, man, we're making like punk rock music and people from all walks of life love our stuff? Has that ever hit you, or you're just like, nah, man, I'm not a racist?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen that to a degree. That for me, I actually have a huge heart for that kind of thing, and I think I still am in a place of not really feeling satisfied with it myself. Like I want to see more of that come as a result of our music, and just I have a heart for that for Christian music in general. So I'm actually in an interracial marriage. My wife is Korean American, so like Asian culture is huge in my life, and as a total white mutt who grew up in Ohio,
Right.
that's kind of a crazy thing. As a kid, I never thought, I figured I'd probably end up marrying blue-eyed, blonde-haired girl like all the other white guys I knew.
Everybody's always shocked.
Right. But it's been one of the most beautiful things that I think I could have ever experienced in my life, is being married to my beautiful Korean bride. And and our kids, we got 3 boys together, and our kids are just studs. They're the most handsome, beautiful kids in the world. And
Yeah.
but just and intertwining with her family, and just coming to understand and embrace a whole different culture has just been one of the greatest things that's ever happened in my life. And growing up in the area that I grew up in, I actually have quite a few African American friends, and always have. Always went to a pretty well mixed school, and
It gives you such an advantage, man.
yeah. I mean, I'm just really, I don't know. It's something I think growing up, I didn't really understand how important that would be in my life later on. And
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for that, but yeah, I love it when I see the diversity in the audience and stuff, but I want to see more.
No, I know what you're saying, man. I know what you're saying, because we said that kind of earlier about the industry kind of controlling things, and you guys being independent. It's like you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
But one of the things I will say is that I've been trying to really, and I was talking to David Crowder, in case you don't know, there's millions of David. But I was talking to David Crowder, and this is kind of what blew up this conversation was. He was talking about the black church and white church, and how that division was there. And I was in the middle of agreeing with him, right? And he was like, I wasn't finished. And the fact that you're agreeing with me tells you that we have a serious problem. And he goes, what about the Hispanic community? What about the Korean community? Like, are we getting the gospel to these? Are we? And he started bringing this up. Because I was saying, hey, how do you feel about the racial divide in Christian music? And he was addressing it, but I thought, like, we talk about black and white as if no other race lives here. You know what I mean? It's like, wait a minute, that's a good point. You know what I mean? And so he started to share about how one of his biggest events, it was a predominantly Korean community. And he's like, what do you do with that? Like, like the church, we've got to take diversity seriously. Because obviously it's really a part of evangelism as well. But as far as the industry is concerned, I think there's a fear, like Kurt Franklin and Toby Mac said years ago, like the Stellar Awards are the Black Gospel Awards, and then the Dove Awards are the white Christian Gospel Awards. And so my dream, and what I'm actually working towards, and one of the reasons why you guys can't ever retire, is because when I pull this off, you guys got to be there. But my dream is to have an event with like a week-long festival, and to have 50 of the best gospel artists and 50 of the best CCM artists in one event, sharing the gospel. We're all learning, this beautiful music that's impacted us so much, but we're all learning how to give God glory. That's my, like, I would love to see Sanctus Real and like bet together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just,
dude, I would love that.
Oh, dude, yeah. Well, we're actually working on it. I was calling it Worlds Collide, but putting events together is tough. You know that. Scheduling issues, all that stuff that happens. But that's my dream, is to do a event with all headliners, but from different genres, and to put them in one where we could not avoid the unity. We couldn't avoid. And just to see what would come out of that, you know what I mean? And to take that on tour. So just so you know, you can't retire, because I want to put you on the bill for that.
All right, hey, we're there.
Now listen,
we're there.
hopefully you're not going to be in your 80s and 90s, but I still think you guys have not failed, not one time, so I still think that we can pull this off even if you're in your 90s. But what are some things you want to tell people, like just share from your heart about how we can, really be those people that really genuinely are who God calls us to be. What would you like people to know when it does come to that, the things we talked about before, the social issues, the fear, how can you help if someone was saying, hey, I'm just stuck right now because of this fear, because of those negative things that the times I messed up, how do you encourage somebody to get past that?
Man, I think the biggest thing that has helped me, and not that I don't still struggle with these things myself, but the biggest thing that's helped me is just constant reminders of two things: who God is and who God says we are in Him. I think there's just such a power in understanding our identity as God's children and where we really stand with Him once we've placed our faith in Christ and what that means for us, like really embracing our.
That did not just happen. So everybody, hold on. He's gonna come back. We've got to refresh the. He's been having some problems with his Wi-Fi, but this is Sanctus Real. They're gonna be here. And yeah, I was just letting everybody know you're gonna be back. I was like, I promise he's gonna be back.
Are we there? Is it working?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay, sorry about that. That one was my wife's fault. My wife just tried calling me.
Honey, I'm in the middle of changing the world. Gotta go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What do you got?
Yeah, but I just think that as we understand our identity in Christ and just the fact that we have a God who is in control, he's sovereign, he's able to work all things together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purposes. Just in that one sentence, it's like there's so much power there. It's like that's the God who calls us his own. And I always say I think God did such an amazing thing by, the Bible refers to, uses this term all the time where it talks about us being in Christ. When God put us in Christ, he's literally placed us in the safest place we could ever be, no matter what our external circumstances may look like.
Yeah.
In the spirit realm, we're in Christ. And when, think about when Jesus was, approaching John the Baptist, going to get baptized and stuff, John says, this is the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. And, they hear a voice from heaven. God literally announces, this is my son with whom I'm well pleased, and it's like, to think that we've been put in Christ, it's like God now looks at us and sees us as his children that with whom he's well pleased, like he sees us as being totally forgiven of our sin and covered by the blood of Jesus. It's like we are now the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. So we have this standing with God that is just unbelievable, yet we believe it. And what it means for us is like, we can't think of something that we could do with our lives that God can't pull off. Like his ability is even beyond our imagination. And it's just like, we should have more confidence than anybody out there. Right.
Right. What's funny is that I realize that because sometimes we let the enemy go first, that we'll feel the impact a little bit harder in our souls or whatever. But of course, my desire is to be more like David and move quickly. Like, I know it looks crazy. I know that he's a giant, but when I look at what God's already done, I want to get to the point where I've learned, where my victories cause me to move quickly. You know what I mean? And I think about, like, even with Moses leading the people out of the Red Sea, it's like their enemies were chasing them, but by the time you get to Joshua, they're going towards their enemies. And I'm like, there's something about God's people that an American culture we've kind of altered that we really got to consider. Like even when I look at you guys, I'm like, hey guys, technically that concept about you guys being Levites is really real because you guys go into the unknown on purpose, where most people say, hey, no, you guys go just like they did with Moses. You guys go right ahead. you go ahead.
Right.
You know, it's almost like you're on the road, you're out there, and then that's a serious thing because you guys genuinely take so many risks, and it's not like a lot of times it's not like the guarantee that you have when you're in the secular world where Budweiser sponsoring you or like the financial stability that sin brings is not. That's it. You're like hoping, you guys are either dealing with the promoters or you're hoping that the church flips the bill. I mean, you guys really kind of are operate, even though I understand the business structure, but you guys really do operate in faith as a lifestyle. You know what I mean? Most people who don't have tour buses don't know tour buses problems. You know what I mean? And then when you say independent artists, I'm like, well, there goes a lot of that record label backing. I mean, you guys are independent, so it's like, that's a tough thing. I do know that I'm going to get you in trouble. Like, I do know that we did not promote one time the fact that you're going to be here November 3rd. That's me being a bad host. This has been great talking to you guys, man. But you guys are going to be in Virginia November 3rd, Regent University.
Are you still there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you see me? Can you see me? Did I lose you? Can you see me?
Okay, there you are.
Okay, gotcha. So you guys, November 3rd at Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So probably should have said that in the beginning. I've only been doing this for 20 years and still mess it up every single day. But November 3rd at Regent University, I did get someone to ask me to ask, do you guys let churches book you at your churches? Someone asked that. Is that something you want to answer, or is it just go to your website type thing?
Sure. Yeah. All of our booking info is on sanctusreal.com. We're currently being booked by an organization called Jeff Roberts Agency, or JRA as most people refer to it. But yeah, you just get on there. There's an email and just shoot them an email or give them a call and say, hey, we want to have a Sanctus Real concert. And they'll help you figure that out.
Right. And so make sure you guys, it's so funny that people do that. Like, man, ask him this. I was like, oh, I didn't mean to ask you while you were on. My bad.
No, you're good. All good.
No, it's all good. So I know that's one of the things that a lot of churches are trying to do is like, how do we get these people here? So do you guys do seminars or any of that stuff, or to help maybe help tighten up some worship teams a little bit? Do you guys, or you guys like, no, we do what we do?
As a band, we primarily just do like our concerts and stuff. But I know as individuals, some of us have been involved in those kind of things. I know like Dustin has done some writing retreats with like church worship bands and stuff. And I've done some stuff with helping with production aspects of, a lot of churches are like, what's a soundboard? How do I make it work? And, stuff like that. So there's little stuff like that on the side that we do as individuals. But as a band, we've never really gone in and done something like that. But I'm not saying we'd never be open to it. That'd probably be kind of cool, actually.
No, I'm thinking about starting some trouble around here. You know what I mean? Like get sent. Like you're already, man. No, for real, I'm on the team. I like how I just put myself on your team. I'm on the team. You're stuck with me now. You should have never took the interview.
You're welcome.
No, but I want to tell everybody, like, man, make sure you guys are supporting. Man, when I think about this, and I'm trying to end it, but man, when I think about the fact, I'm like, dude, you guys were kicking butt before. I want to say the name was. I want to say it was something like LimeWire. Right, it was right before the downloading thing really got bad. Where
Oh,
what was that thing called?
yeah.
They were like, oh,
Well, there was like the initial one was Napster, right? Like that was kind of the
Napster.
first.
That was the initial one. You
Yeah,
guys,
but there was another.
you hadn't formed yet with Napster.
No, that was well, I think technically we were a band, but we were just like kids playing in the basement kind of thing.
Because it wasn't too far off from that. I mean, it was like Napster,
No.
and then I want to say, man, like around 2000 ish, LimeWire
Yeah.
started. And how, did that affect you guys at all when the people started downloading free music?
I don't think it really messed us up too bad. For us, it was like this interesting timing where we were kind of riding that line of we were a brand new band, so we were just kind of putting records out nationally for the first time, and the whole industry started kind of going through that shift of like, CD sales are slowly going down, all this free downloading is happening, and so as our careers kind of started, that transition was happening. So we kind of went through the transition with the industry as a whole, which was kind of interesting.
I was going to say it kind of makes you a little bit immune to those changes because I come from we couldn't make it without this. We needed CD sales. We needed that, and we didn't have enough sense to cross over into merch like shirts and things like that. So we just it was just like, I guess we're breaking up, man.
Yeah.
We didn't sit then. But it was like afterwards, it was like, oh, we could have did that. That makes a lot of sense. We could have, but I mean, we just obviously coming from, 8 tracks to that to tapes, CDs. Not having something physical was just absurd,
Sure.
And so then, but you guys hung in there, and you kind of how did you guys take the social media storm? Were you able to grab hold of it pretty good, or were you just like, I'm not getting involved in that?
I think that's always been a struggle for us to a degree. I think not so much that we didn't understand it. I think we were just young enough that we were, because we all had our own little Twitter accounts or Facebook or whatever. I mentioned the old ones first. Maybe I'm showing my age, but
I'm with you.
But I think our issue is more just the fact that none of us are really that kind of guy, which might sound funny coming from somebody who spends their life on stage a lot, but none of us are those kind of guys that just really want to post a selfie every 5 minutes. Like we're not really guys who necessarily seek out the spotlight. We just kind of are forced to be in it every once in a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think to our own detriment sometimes that can be a thing for us. We've never been huge on the social media stuff, but we're still slowly getting better.
You got just spoken like a true artist. Like the true artist is like, no, we don't need all that. We don't. It's like, this is how we sell records. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
No, I get it. It's like, but there's the other side, which is the artists that are getting in trouble. So I'd much rather deal with you guys than the artist that's like, you got to bail them out again. Like, no, this is bad PR. Man, I want to say thank you, man. Thank you for taking this time with us. I don't want to scare you off. Where you're like, Duke's here. He talks for 4 hours for real. I'm going in a different direction. But I can't wait to see you guys here on November 3rd at Regis University. Once we're done, man, I'm gonna send you a message. But I wanted to tell her, is there anything else you want people to know?
Oh man, just be on the lookout for a lot of new music will be coming out soon. We talked about 2020 earlier. We really did write a stockpile of songs, and over the we've released a few over the past year or so, but there's a lot more coming. So yeah, just kind of be on the lookout for what we're putting out, and yeah, I really hope all you guys enjoy it.
Well, listen, everybody, if you want to check out this podcast, just go to either YouTube at Real Life with Duke White, or you can go to Apple Podcast and to look up Real Life with Duke White. And of course, you can go to the Current FM Facebook page. That's Current FM Facebook. And then, of course, don't forget to, if you want to listen to all the different ways to listen, make sure you go to comingsoonjesus.org and currentfm.com. That's how you find out all the cool things we got going on. Man, so we're going to let everybody go. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you. Hang on for a second. When I get offline, I'm going to tell you some stuff. And then, all right, guys. So see you November 3rd, Region University. Make sure you guys are there. Sanctus Real is in the building.